Oh, the thing is, there's been lately great enthusiasm with the use of psychedelic drugs in the treatment of depression. As you can see in the publications, the number rise steeply up as there's a growing enthusiasm with the possibility of treating depression with psychedelic drugs. Which drugs are we talking about? Ayahuasca, psilocybin, LSD, ketamine. That includes, of course, the magic mushrooms and that sort of stuff. The thing is, depression is a big problem in the world. It's a big problem in psychiatry. We have good antidepressant drugs, but the effectiveness is not as good as we would like to. We find resistant cases. There's a lack in to start the effect of the drugs, and this opens a door to a new kind of treatment. And the idea is what's going on when we use psychedelic drugs in the treatment of depression, to look at it from the descriptive psychological point of view. Psychedelic drugs have been used to treat different conditions and situations. Depression, especially lately, treatment-resistant depression, and depression in life-threatening illnesses. For example, in cancer, in severe cancer, in terminal cancer, situations that are very difficult to treat. They've been used to treat anxiety and to enhance, as an enhancement in psychotherapy. Also to treat addictions and exceptionally to treat OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. The mechanism of improvement with these psychedelic drugs seems to be different from the mechanisms involved when we use antidepressant drugs. For example, the timing is different. The antidepressant drugs have latency. So you have to take the drug for a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks to see the effects. On the other hand, the use of psychedelic drugs, the effect is immediate. Right? Also, the emotional reactivity. Antidepressants tend to blunt the effect. Blunts the sadness, the anxiety, but also normal reactivity, emotional reactivity. On the other hand, the use of psychedelic drugs seems to release the emotions, and the patient see like a summer storm of emotions when using psychedelic drugs. It has been conceptualized that antidepressant drugs lower depression, but psychedelic drugs improve well-being. Of course, there are several biochemical mechanisms are involved and have been studied, but that is not the scope of this brief talk. So what we propose, we want to make a psychopathological model of response based on this description of subjective experiences in the treatment with hallucinogenic drugs. We compare these subjective experiences with the ones that people feel in life-changing experiences, such as near-death experiences and religious conversion, for example. And we seek for a specific and distinct change in the state of consciousness as a promoter of that change in the mood. When we look at this, there's quite a lot of literature on the subjective feelings during the treatment with psychedelic drug. People have intense emotional state and memories, but they are both pleasant and unpleasant. There are feelings described of feelings of oneness, feelings of transcendence, feelings of fusion with greatness, feelings of dissolution of the ego, feelings of ineffability, connection with other people, with other beings, feelings of deep peace, of joy, and a complex emotion that we usually call awe. There's a mixture of surprise, joy, and fear. Some subjects describe the whole of this experience as mystical based on this element. And many people say that the experience with hallucinogenic drugs, especially when used in the traditional, for example, the use of ayahuasca with a shaman in the jungle as a cure for whatever problem the person has, is the people live that as a life-changing experience with which they can recall years later as something that changed their lives completely. So it's like a mystical moment induced by this, described by these feelings. These mystical elements have been correlated with efficacy. This has been done with ketamine. When people describe more mystical feelings as the ones we mentioned, that can be correlated with the efficacy of the treatment. People that have no mystical feelings tend to have less results with the treatment. It has been also described previously that the experience of awe results in giving new significance, calibration of cognitions, emergence of new emotions. This has been even tried when in a class you tend to promote, or in a camp or whatever, you tend to promote awe in the audience. That tends the memory of that moment, the things learned in that moment, tend to be more permanent than when no experience of awe is induced. We find similar emotions in religious conversions. There's not much literature published on this, but there are many subjective experiences and stories about it, how people feel mystical feelings and experience awe and feel that as a life-changing experience. That has been described also in near-death experiences and probably other life-changing experiences. Some people feel this when they fall in love, other people feel that when they have a heart attack or whatever. So these emotions, mystical emotions, and awe have obviously a great value in the cohesiveness of human groups. Awe is an emotion that shifts the evaluation from the self to the group as a whole. It recalibrates cognition and mood in consequence. It has been called a hive switch. Hive in the sense of a big group of bees or whatever. The thing is, when you feel this emotion, you stop feeling yourself as an individual. Take this with some looseness. You don't feel very much yourself as an individual, and you start feeling yourself as part of a group. You can feel this sort of thing when you are, for example, in a football match, shouting for your team. You can feel the joy of being part of a group, of the collective emotion. You can feel that when you're in a rock concert, when you start jumping and shouting with the other people, you stop feeling the attention is not on yourself, but on the group as a whole. You feel that you are united in a whole. You lose your oneness in favor of the group. That to an extreme can be called a mystical experience and can be very intense in the use of hallucinogenic drugs, in mystical experiences in religious groups, and perhaps in other situations. But that's the key we want to recall in this talk as the key element that shifts from the individual to the group. If depression can be understood as a losing strategy in social competition, as Price published the social competition strategy, or in any case, when you are depressed, you feel yourself devaluated in comparisons with the other ones. What happens when you change this strategy to the group strategy? You stop feeling yourself as a loser in the group and you start feeling yourself as a part of the group. That shift the attention from the individual level to the group level in cognition, in self-evaluation. That is mediated by awe or by mystical experiences induced by psychedelic drugs. And we propose that shifting from the individual to the group feeling is the mechanism to improve depression. I will not talk much more about this, but it's the use of psychedelic drugs opens a door to a very strong feeling we have inside to improve our mood. That is the very strong feeling of being united in a group. That feeling can be used by drugs. That is a feeling we all know from situations, as I mentioned, as shouting for your football team or for your national country team, or feeling united to others, singing in a choir, or being in a religious group. And that sort of feeling that shifts from individual to the group is the key to improving depression, the key that psychedelic drugs tap into.